Welcome to the Confident Marketing Leader podcast, where we empower you to make your mark as a strategic and impactful marketing leader. Each episode, join us as we bring in top industry experts to help you earn and keep your seat at the leadership table. All right. Well, Diego, I'm excited to have you here. I've reached out to all of the top 10 rising stars in the marketing world, according to LinkedIn. So I'm really excited for our conversation today. So I guess let's get an intro, a background about you, kind of where you are in the world and what you're up to.
Yeah, so I'm Diego. I'm the founder of B2B Marketing, B2B SaaS, a paid media agency. We focus on helping B2B SaaS companies with their paid media and basically their advertising. And a little bit from me, I started at marketing in 2017 when I was just 16 years old. So if you want to do the math, today I'm 21 years old. So I have about 6 years in marketing, and I started this Vulcan in 2019 when exactly the same day I turned 18.
Wow.
Yeah, so I started reaching out to local businesses, offering them help with their paid media. Hey, I run Facebook ads, because even though we hear on LinkedIn that lead gen is terrible and everything's about demand, when you focus on local businesses, that actually super helpful. And because of the dynamics of local businesses, generating leads is always a good idea. And that's basically what I did. I offered them, hey, I can get you more leads if you want to work with me. So sadly, 3 months after I started Vulcan, the pandemic happened, which made a huge impact on the business, and every potential client I had closed overnight.
Oh,
So
wow.
I had to make a pivot there. And that's where like the important realization, or let's say the epiphany that I had, is that I can work with companies all over the world, which is the beauty of remote work. That flipped the switch in me. So I started reaching out to businesses all over the world. It's really tough because, doing sales, showing that you barely had any experience. And it's one of the reasons why I believe salespeople are one of the strongest people on earth. Like, the amount of rejection you get on a daily basis is incredible. So about a few months in, like in November 2020, I started on LinkedIn, and well, 3 years later, here I am, and it has been like by far probably the best decision I took in my career.
Yeah, and that's an incredible story and journey, and the fact that you are, I guess, self-educated in marketing and kind of just jumped right in to learn. I love that.
Yeah.
Congrats.
Yeah, so like a little addition to the story, like before starting my business, I did a lot of, let's say, entrepreneurial ventures. Like I started at the time, drop shipping was super huge. So I started
Mm-hmm.
like a mini company there. Of course, it didn't end well, but the amount of learnings I got were absolutely amazing that are still serving me today.
Yeah. Okay. So let's talk about, how does it feel to be named one of the LinkedIn rising stars of the marketing world?
Wow, that actually was a super great honor, and I believe it's super motivating not only to keep creating on the platform, but also it's like a good reminder that sometimes you might feel like that you're not making progress, but knowing that my content, like my point of view in marketing, in some way is bringing value to the community and it's resonating, it really let's say encourages me to keep pushing forward in my journey.
Yes. So let's dive a little bit deeper into your, I guess, perspective and philosophy of marketing. How would you summarize that?
This is a really interesting question because there's a lot of angles we can cover this. But let's say from a general perspective, from my experience so far in B2B marketing, one thing that I've been noticing, especially as an agency, is that most companies, like even though we might believe they are, most of them have basic things that they haven't figured out. For example, what I call the foundations or the fundamentals of businesses, especially like these startups, many of them don't have this foundation set up. What are these foundations? Let's say and the funny thing is that this might seem like obvious business advice, but very few companies actually apply this in practice. For example, your target audience, having a clear definition of who you want to target, having a deep understanding of them, what they care about, what are their problems, the struggles they face on a daily basis, how your product would actually help their business. These are things that should be like a fundamental part of a business, but very few companies actually have this in place because they do like a quick customer research phase. They do some surveys, they research what keywords are people looking for, and they think that's customer research. When of course a lot more to it, like interviewing customers, entering communities, social media, and going deep into what's the mindset of your customers, and actually understanding what they care about. And the important thing about this won't only improve your marketing. If you know what your customers care about, it will improve your product, your customer service, the experience, the buying experience, like everything improves inside the business. So this is like one fundamental that many businesses don't, let's say, they skip or they do it very briefly.
So why do you think companies are skipping these important steps?
Yeah, so for most venture-backed startups, they have very ambitious goals to hit. They have to double their growth, triple their growth, because if not, the investors won't be happy. So they have to deliver results as quick as possible. So whenever for example, they bring a new vendor or an agency, a consultant, the first thing they tell you, hey, we need to achieve X leads this month. We need to get X amount of pipeline. So we need you to get results today. Instead of like going through these basics, figuring out the audience, the strategy, the positioning, everything, they go straight into the tactics, the execution. Hey, let's run some ads, let's create some content, let's do some events, let's get leads. When you have this mindset, of course, in the short term, it might make sense because you might get results, but very quickly, like this eventually will stall. Like you start seeing diminishing returns and you wonder, hey, what's happening? Like, is it that we should start creating content on TikTok? We should run LinkedIn ads. We should, run an event. We should do ABM. No, the question is not doing a different tactic, different channels. It's about going back to these foundations and seeing what's wrong. Often the problem is not that the channel you're using is wrong. It's that the message you're communicating or the audience, let's say the audience that you're targeting, is not the audience that benefits the most from your product. So this is why I believe like companies don't focus on the basics, because they are super obsessed with targets and reaching their goals.
And do you primarily work with CEOs or like a head of marketing?
Yeah, in the execution, we mainly work with the head of marketers, a head of marketing, VP of marketing, those who are let's say in the trenches, getting the work done. And also, of course, the CEO should be involved in terms of reviewing the strategy and seeing how the work we're doing is influencing eventually these business metrics and contributing to the goals.
Yeah. So I'm curious, your standpoint, having worked with both CEOs and, heads of marketing, this stat that says only 32% of CEOs trust their CMO. And what are ways that marketers can start to build that trust back with the C-suite that may not understand all of the ins and outs of marketing, and frankly, they don't necessarily care. So
this is a really interesting question, and I got like completely surprised when I saw this data, because it's like, hey, you're hiring someone and you don't believe in them in the first place. Like that's, might be a lot of issues involving that. But from a marketing perspective, I think that, the long-term nature of marketing, that a lot of the best results come in a few months down the road. And in contrast with what I told you, that companies need to get results today, they have to reach their goals this quarter. There's like a discrepancy between where marketing creates the biggest impact and what companies care about. So this is one of the reasons why many executives don't invest in marketing super late, or when they invest in it, they want to micromanage, they want to get results today. they want to, let's say, hey, bring me some leads, because they have pressure to hit their goals, but also because marketing in its nature is like more of a long-term type of game. So one thing I like always, I'm still learning about this every day, is that marketers need to get better at communicating the value of marketing. It's
Mhm.
not about showing a CEO how your marketing will get more website traffic. It's not about showing them how it will get more likes on Instagram, on LinkedIn. It's about showing them how this website traffic, let's say, these followers, this engagement, all of this, how all of these, let's say, leading indicators will transfer into business outcomes, which is eventually, of course, what CEOs care about. Now, so as we know, there's a lot of CEOs that quote unquote don't get marketing. So this
Mhm.
might be really tough depending on your CEO and depending on the background they have. So this is what I believe super crucial. How you communicate the vision of marketing and how you're gonna get these business outcomes, even if it, let's say, you won't get the results today, but how the existing signals, how the new followers, how the, let's say, the new likes, the engagement, or the people coming in, how this will transfer into revenue and pipeline. That's for me like the number one way on how marketers can prove that the value of marketing.
Yeah, I love that. I think the what you said, creating a vision for marketing is really critical. I think a lot of times marketers don't spend time putting on paper what the vision is for their own organization. And then part two is communicating that to the rest of the C-suite and making sure everybody's bought in and can follow along, because that's, a big skill set of being a marketing leader is the ability to get buy-in from the rest of your peers.
Absolutely.
So let's talk about channels, because the other piece I think there with when coming up with this vision for your marketing is that we have a million different combinations of tactics and channels that we could go after. How do you, I guess, and I'd be interested to know like what you did in your background at building the agency and also being a salesperson. Like, how did you figure out and try different tactics and tools and come up with this magical formula that was working for you?
So yeah, so like from let's say from a B2B SaaS perspective, let's say if I were in a startup, how can I find, let's say, the magic combination that that can bring the best results for your company? Like first of all, I will think again, coming a little back to what I told about the foundations, all of this, or like let's say like from a perspective, for example, of copywriter, often what you hear is that copywriting is mostly research, and when you have such a deep understanding of the people you're trying to market to or sell to, like the copy almost writes itself. That's something how I see the strategy piece when building, let's say, that combination. When you have like an understanding of where your customers hang out consistently, what are their behaviors when learning, consuming content, interacting with their peers, buying, and let's say combining these two things together, understanding about the customers and their behaviors, and of course, what resources your company has available. Let's say if you have a strong understanding of these two things, you can develop like a first draft or a, like, let's say a V1 of a strategy to start marketing to customers. For example, your customers spend a lot of time on communities, they spend time on Reddit, Quora, Slack, interacting between peers. Now you understand that, for example, a big piece of your strategy will be interacting in these communities, creating content that is easily shareable, let's say, that you can share easily to these platforms so your target audience can consume it. And now, let's say, what message are you communicating in these places in the first place? Now, we come back to, let's say, what your customers care about. Let's say an example, last year, like, let's say 2020, 2021, the industry was booming in terms of funding, and everyone wanted to grow fast. That, for example, back then the messaging is, hey, we help you grow faster, we help you accelerate results. But then 2022 hit, and the messaging changed for most people, especially for my agency. It changed a lot. Now people weren't caring, hey, I don't want to get 100x growth targets. Like now I need to survive. I need to figure out the basics. I need to, as they call it, grow, do more with less. So
Mhm.
that's also an important piece of your marketing is understanding what are the existing, let's say, trends, what are the existing problems or stuff your audience is facing, and create your messaging, update your messaging to address these situations from your target audience. This is like, for me, the two main components to find this combination, a deep understanding of the customers and their behaviors, and like having the context of, let's say, what's happening in the world, how can our company influence, let's say, or be part of this transformation. And like to come back to your point on how we did, how I did it at my agency, like I feel like it came almost accidentally because back then was mainly figuring out what, let's say, what I wanted to do, or my way to acquire clients. So as you said, like early on I was a salesperson. I was trying to sell my services, and I realized like, hey, like this will be really tough to, let's say, grow in the long term through only outreach. Like if I don't start building a brand, at least something that can support me, like I won't find the compounding effect, let's say, for my agency, and I will have to chase customers forever. So
Mhm.
started like connecting the dots. For example, a lot of people that were interacting with me, a lot of clients, they were talking about LinkedIn is the platform, and especially getting signals from other people. For example, back in 2019, 2020, Gary V, like almost every early entrepreneur follows Gary V. Like all he was talking about is, hey, LinkedIn, LinkedIn, LinkedIn. And I say, hey, like I connected the dots, like, hey, I need to build a brand. I work with B2B companies, and there are signals that this might be the best channel to work on. And that's where I found like the formula to come up with, hey, to start with LinkedIn and, complementing it with my
Mhm.
sales work.
You're tuning in to the Confident Marketing Leader podcast, where we share advice to build credibility and impact as a B2B marketer. You can also catch our episodes on Spotify and Apple Podcast, and the video version of this podcast on YouTube.
Yeah, well, and I think the interesting thing that a lot of marketers don't necessarily get the privilege of experiencing is, in a sales role, like you mentioned, when you pitch your idea or share a message or share a framework or share a concept, you get immediate feedback from the potential customer. Did it land well? Did it resonate? Did they immediately reject you? Did they say they didn't need it? And then you get feedback to then, okay, I got to go back and work on this, and I need to refine my message a little bit more because something was off. So I think that's like a huge benefit for your role being both in kind of marketing and sales.
Exactly. And actually, it's that sales experience is still serving me well today. Like, as I told you, like, I believe like when as a marketer, when you have like some sales experience, like your perspective on not only marketing but sales it changes a lot, because you understand what salespeople face on a daily basis. You understand the importance of having a message that resonates, because let's say in marketing, someone rejects you because they ignore your content. But
Right.
when you're a salesperson, they don't ignore you. They say, hey, please stop calling me, please stop sending me emails. The rejection is way stronger. And,
Yeah.
this is why I believe, being a salesperson makes you way stronger, because the rejection you face is very different than the rejection you face as a marketer.
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned staying in tune with what's happening, existing trends or problems or shifts in the economy, kind of what's happening within the industry or market. Can you give some like tactical advice on how marketers should keep their pulse on what's going on? Like, where should they find this information so they can begin to connect the dots more?
That's a great question. So first of all, I believe one of the best ways, let's say, depending on your industry, is staying in touch with the community. That's how, let's say, in my case, I found out about these upcoming changes in the market. For example, in mid 2022, when approximately the recession talks were starting, is when we started seeing on LinkedIn and on news like that, hey, this big company lay off thousands of roles. and this company had to lay off X amount of people. This company had to close because they don't have more funding. And this kind of information, staying in touch with the community, whether it's on LinkedIn, again, is Slack communities, Twitter, anything like that. When you stay in touch with other peers from the community and you start, interacting with them, hearing what concerns they might be hearing. Hey, the community is looking rough, funding is getting tougher. Now, when you start getting these signals of getting this qualitative information from the market, is when you can start, let's say, building some conclusions, you start building some ideas, and you say, this is coming, we have to prepare, so what we can do about it. That's how I did it in my case. I stayed super close with the community every day, and I realized early that this was coming, so it's better to get prepared, make this change. And if it happens, I'm already prepared. I'm, let's say, ahead of other people, instead of when it happens, like, oh, I can't believe this is happening. What we can do about it. It's a lot about being proactive versus reactive.
Yeah. Well, and along those lines, I guess a question for you, how do you stay ahead of trends and changes happening sort of in the tech landscape? So obviously there was a big buzz around ChatGPT and how we use AI. More and more people kind of jumped on that. So we're seeing, a lot of companies use it for content marketing. But I'm just curious because I see a lot of marketers that try to chase the bright, shiny object, or the CEO sees something or reads an article in Harvard Business Review and everybody's expected to go implement something overnight. And so there's always this balance of, following trends or being interested in them versus going all in. So curious how you've used new tech and tools.
Yeah, so this is a really good question. So I think it's a mix between two things. Like, first, coming a little bit back to that question, is staying close to the customer, to your audience. Like, a lot of things will come along the way. Like, for example, last year and the last few years was all about Web3, metaverse, a new coming trend, and a lot of people jump on it. And now this year is all about AI. So it's one thing will be like staying in touch with the community and your audience to understand that these things are happening. But I believe like the other part of the equation will be like to test these things in small experiments, because in any new invention, any new trend, there will be two types of people, like those who are super advocates, super believers in this thing, and those who are against it. So you can be, hey, I don't think this will work. I don't think this will be great. And you stay, you leave it aside. But the problem is you don't know if it can end up becoming something big, which ChatGPT is becoming this. So for me, it's like going a mix of the two, like be agnostic about new trends and new ideas and new channels, anything. And just instead of, let's say, buying into the hype, be agnostic about it, try it out, test it out, see how it works. And eventually time will tell if this will be something that's prevalent in the industry or not. But if it works, you will be ahead from everyone that just jumped in the ship. Or you will be, if you enter these platforms when there's a lot of hype, when everyone already told you about it, you might be late to the trend. So I think that's that combination of being agnostic, don't buying into the hype, but also going in with like, an open mind, testing it out for yourself and seeing how it might apply for your business.
Yes, great advice. Okay, so my final question is, what advice would you give to someone that is wanting to build up more confidence and credibility as a B2B marketing leader?
And this is like for themselves, or more, let's say, more confidence in their team, like for the strategies they might be running.
Yeah, just kind of overall, like those folks that are leading a marketing function. I mean, there's so much change happening, with the buyers and with new channels and tactics and new methodologies, and just staying grounded and really being confident in that role instead of, like we were just talking about, chasing the shiny object and getting burnt out.
Yeah, this is a really great question. And I really feel for a lot of marketing leaders that I talk to many that have faced a lot of pressure, especially today, to deliver these goals. So whenever like I talk about what they will do in these situations, it will be like, again, like kind of a compilation of what we talk about during this chat, is that you have to be proactive and have a, let's say, as much of an open mind as possible to what is coming in the future. For example, talks about a recession will keep coming in, especially what happened a few days ago with Silicon Valley Bank. So there's a lot of things that we can say from a mindset level. There are things that you can't control, and there are other things that you can control. So focusing, let's say, what are the things that you can manage inside your startup? For example, you can keep, let's say, you have less, your results are coming down. Instead of panicking, take a step back and analyze. Okay, we have less results, let's say, in our ads. Why this might be happening? Instead of panicking and going into, say, a quick tactics mode, hey, let's spend more, let's try a new channel, etc. Let's take a step back. Hey, what might be happening? Is it that our customers, they got burned out from the creatives, from the message? Is the positioning not working? Is this, let's say, this message not landing? Or let's say, which also happens, is this an external situation? We are in a, let's say, slow time of the year. Can we do something about it? Can we not? For me, like, the first step is focusing on the things that you can or can't control. That's what I did myself. When things weren't going well in my agency when I started, instead of panicking, and I focus on the things that figuring out the ways to progress. And for me, that's the best way to build confidence. And to get really, really tactical, I think it will be, again, taking this mindset of seeing what you can do about the problems in your business and going and analyze the stuff you're doing instead of being reactive. And of course, you have to deliver results for this next quarter, for this, you have ambitious goals to hit. But going into reactive mode never helps, never, I don't think in any situation. So be, let's say, be calm, be patient about the situation, and analyze and see what's going well and what's going wrong. That would be like my advice for building confidence and let's say, navigating through hard times.
Yes. Well, Diego, I'm super impressed about your background. I can't believe that you are only 21. You've had so much amazing experience, and just the lived experience and wisdom that you brought to everybody today is amazing. So thank you for sharing that.
Thank you so much. There's
final... Oh, yeah, go ahead.
No, there's a lot to learn still. Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, when you have the right mindset, I mean, always be learning. That's sort of like the mantra for marketers, I think. How can everybody get in touch with you?
Yeah, so there's two ways you can get in touch with me or, learn more about what we do. First, we have like our website, volcanmarketing.com, where you can find more about what we do exactly. If you need help with your paid media or let's say, advertising work, you can check out more about our pricing or services there. Or if you want to learn more of my perspective on B2B marketing and get some advice on how to navigate the industry from a different and, let's say, a more younger perspective on the industry, you can check me out on LinkedIn, Diego Oquendo.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining, and we will see each other soon on LinkedIn.
Thank you, Stacey.
Thank you for listening to this episode of The Confident Marketing Leader. I hope that you gained new insights to help you keep your seat at the leadership table. You can reach me anytime through LinkedIn and at shakemktg.com. Links are in my bio. And if you find this content interesting, or if you know another marketing leader who needs to know about it, please share it so we can help build up our credibility and make a bigger impact as a B2B marketing community. Looking forward to being with you again next time.